Welcome back to iSTORM and the GDPR and data protection diaries. In this video, what we're going to be talking about is data breaches from the last 12 months. So the 10 most noticeable or most notable data breaches from 2019. What I'm not going to do is just go through them in order of the biggest or the most number of records, because I don't think that really adds a great deal of value to the conversation. What I'm going to do is go through the 10 most noticeable incidents, to the 10 incidents that happened this year that I think are most important for organisations and for people to actually take notice of. And I'll explain why I think each incident is notable and why I think it's important as we go through. As always, if you find this video useful or you find this content interesting, please do give us a like, add a comment down below if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, and obviously join the subscriber group as well. Make sure you click on the link to subscribe. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to get in touch, and you'll always see the website at the bottom of the page. But for now, let's get on with the video and let's see what's happened over the last year. So the first incident that I think is notable, coming in at number 10, is the shutting down of Google+. Now, Google+ was a social networking site created by Google in a bid to try and take on sort of Facebook and other sites. It didn't really go according to plan, and eventually the website was pulled down in April of this year. One of the main reasons that the website was pulled down, not just due to lack of users, was also the fact that a incident was noticed where third-party developers, so app developers, were being given unfettered access to the friends of the people who were using the app. So it was giving them access through, and that was being done through a faulty API. Once this was announced, Google took the decision that actually it was easier to shut down Google+ than it was to try and keep fixing things, and it just wasn't cost effective. For me, this is notable because it goes to show that if you're not managing something effectively, sometimes it is easier just to shut something down if things are getting overcomplicated. And it's interesting that Google took the decision to close Google+ rather than to try and continue and make it work. Next up, we have a breach from Service Jobs. Service Jobs is an online CV library, obviously for people looking for employment. They were involved in a breach of around 29,000 CVs that were found on an unsecured AWS server, so an Amazon Web Services server. The server bucket was unprotected, didn't have any security controls, didn't have any password controls. I believe they'd tweaked with the default settings, which actually make the buckets very secure. And essentially, they didn't understand what they were doing or what they were using. This is a common theme that we sometimes start to see when people are looking at using cloud-based services because they think it's cheaper and easier, is that people don't necessarily understand the technical complexities and the controls that are required to keep these things safe, bearing in mind these are essentially public clouds. And this is where we're starting to see incidents coming through, and that's why that's a notable one for me. The next incident involved Teletext Holidays. Teletext Holidays is again an online holiday website, and they had an incident involved 500,000 records, including just over 200,000 audio files and recordings. Now again, this information was stored on an AWS server, and the server was unprotected, allowing unfettered access to the information and the data contained within it. Again, it goes to show that if you are using cloud services or you're looking to utilize cloud services, you need to make sure that your organization or that you as an individual understand the security controls that are required to keep that information safe, because again, you are basically putting information out on the internet where anybody can access it. So it is important that those controls are being monitored and those controls are effective. In at number 7 is what was called the Suprema database. Suprema is an organization that provides access control systems to a number of different organisations across around, I think, 85 different countries using biometrics, so fingerprint scanning. Their system was breached and access was gained to more than 1 million fingerprints belonging to a range of individuals, including data collected by the Metropolitan Police and also some defence contractors. Again, this information is used to gain access to buildings using biometrics, but it does show the importance of making sure that that information is secured. For me personally, I think biometrics for building entry is a tricky subject because the level of control, the level of privacy and the potential intrusion is very high. But obviously when you're looking at really secure sites, then biometrics can be a key way of making sure that only authorized individuals can access it. But again, you need to make sure that the third parties that you're using or the suppliers that are being used are going to manage that information and protect that information in the best way possible. And obviously that's not what happened here with Suprema. In at number 6 is the British Airways hack. Now, I would imagine a number of people will probably think that this should have rated a little bit higher than at number 6, but for me, it's significant and it's notable, but it's not one of the most notable incidents of 2019. Yes, the incident involved the hacking of around 380,000 people's payment details, and that was done by directing people to a essentially clone of the British Airways website and then took payment and card details from people in that fashion. The reason that this is quite high up on the list for me is that while it's notable, it's also important to point out that this was a sophisticated, targeted attack, and it actually goes to show that no matter how good your security controls are, and how good your IT systems are, not that British Airways are perfect, but it just goes to show that actually, if somebody wants to gain access to your information and wants to take over, then it can be done quite easily, and it can be very, very hard to stop. And that's why this one is notable for me. In at number 5, we have an incident involving Butlins. For those of you who don't know, Butlins is a UK-based holiday resort company. They essentially do kind of like camping holidays and caravan holidays and chalets on seaside resorts across the UK. They had a breach involving around 34,000 customers. They gained access to names, addresses, emails, so nothing sensitive, but just mainly personal information. The reason this incident is notable for me is that the way that access was gained to this data was actually through a phishing email which was sent to an employee within the company. The employee opened the email, and obviously that granted access or allowed the bot in to gain access to the systems where they were then able to retrieve data. Phishing emails, human error, and alike continue to be one of the most significant causes of data breaches. And it's incredibly important that organizations start to understand and train their customers and train their employees to look out for what phishing emails look like and to make sure those are being reported to the IT team so that they can be stopped, because they still remain one of the easiest ways to gain access to an organization. Next on the list was an incident from the UK government involving the use of a third-party application called Trello. Now, Trello is a list application that allows you to sort of sort and order out tasks in a more efficient fashion. And it turns out that Trello is being used by a number of government employees rather than using the in-house approved secure systems. What they didn't realise that is the lists that they were creating and the user accounts that they were using were actually listed as public, meaning that anybody could gain access to and could look at those lists, and there was potentially sensitive information being leaked out through those lists. The reason this is notable for me is that, again, these individuals were provided with approved organisational systems and controls. They were told to use these things and they ended up using third-party systems, which has then caused them to have a breach. So again, if you are utilising systems within your organisation, you need to make sure that your staff understand the importance of only using those systems and not using other third-party systems that haven't been approved, because this is what can happen when you start using third-party programs that haven't been vetted, haven't been understood, and aren't properly controlled. In at number 3 is the well-publicised breach of a Facebook database. The database, we understand, contains somewhere in the region of 400 million records from Facebook users from across the world. Around 18 million of those related to UK individuals, so people residing within the UK. The data itself was not particularly sensitive. It's believed to only be Facebook user ID and potentially Facebook users' mobile or telephone numbers. Now, Facebook mobile numbers stopped being public, I believe, in around 2016. So obviously there is an implication there that people have access now to a range of telephone numbers that weren't freely available through Facebook. What's most notable about this incident is that we are talking about probably one of the largest tech companies in the world who obviously have access to huge amounts of information, yet this information was stored on a non-password protected server. So it was easy for anyone to gain access to this information. I say easy, you have to know how, but it was possible for people to gain access to this information and would extract that information simply because there wasn't a password on the server. So this is a really basic, simple fix, probably one of the most basic controls when you're looking at information security, and an organisation the size of Facebook managed to let that slip. So for me, again, that's notable. It points out that even the largest organisations are still managing to forget things. In at number 2 is something called collection number 1. Collection number 1 is the largest documented database of breached records ever found or ever located on the internet. The file is estimated to contain somewhere in the region of 700 million email addresses and around 21 million passwords. It's believed that the database was created to be used for what they call credential stuffing, which is essentially where usernames or email addresses and passwords are combined together and then essentially stuffed into a number of different websites, trying a number of different combinations to see if they can gain access to individuals' accounts. For me, this is notable because it is a significant number of records, and it highlights really that in this day and age, if you are on the internet, if you have an email address, if you have used online services, then there's a real risk that your information will probably have been breached at some point. And it's important that you start to make changes to your systems, changes to your controls, and changes to your personal life. Make sure that you're choosing passwords that are secure. Have a look on haveibeenowned.com, so pwned.com. Put your email address in there, and that will tell you if you've been involved in any breaches. And if you have, make sure you're going through, make sure you're changing your passwords, and obviously try not to use the same password for every single account, because it is widely believed now that pretty much anybody that's online has probably been involved in a breach at some time. At number 1, and for me this is the most notable incident of the year so far. I don't know if everyone's going to agree, but I'll explain why. Incident number 1 involves an employee of EE. So EE is a UK-based mobile telephone provider, so network provider. And they had an employee there who used his system access and used the information available to him to stalk his ex-girlfriend. Now, when I say stalk, this guy managed to change her handset. He changed her phone number so that all telephone calls she received and all messages she received went to him rather than to her. He gained access to her bank account information. He gained access to her new address when she moved house to move away from him, and then he went round there with his friends to try and divert her from talking to the police and trying to get to remove her complaint from the police. This is a significant breach of not just internal controls, but but also of an individual's right to privacy. This lady put her trust in EE, put her trust in her mobile provider to keep her information secure. And actually, while they did that, from an external perspective, what they did miss is that some of the greatest threats to an organization come from the inside, so come from an insider threat. I'm not saying that it would have been easy to identify that this individual was gaining access to the account, but it demonstrates just how significant an impact an employee from inside your organization can have on your company. As I said at the beginning of this video has never been about data breaches in terms of scale or in terms of size or in terms of number of records, because I don't think that adds anything to the conversation. This has always been about what's important and what I think people should be taking notice of. And that's why, for me, this is the most notable incident of the year. Make sure that your employees are trained. Make sure your employees understand the importance of data protection for your organization, and make sure that you have appropriate controls in place to monitor and effectively control the access that those individuals have to the data contained within your systems. Because for me, the two biggest risks to any organization are human error and insider threats. As always, if you find this video useful, please do give us a like, add a comment down below, give us a share, and of course make sure you click the subscribe button, which you'll see somewhere in the top left hand corner. If you have any questions, if there's anything you'd like to add, you disagree, you do agree, anything like that, please do add some comments down below. We'd love to have a conversation with you. And of course, if there's anything you'd like us to cover in the future, please do drop us a line. And as I say, the website is down the bottom of the page. For now, that's it from me. I hope you've had a fantastic 2019, and we look forward to speaking to you again in the next decade. Thanks very much.